The Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, which took place in Johannesburg a few days ago, has been hailed as a major success. China's President Xi Jinping met with leaders from across Africa, and he announced a massive $60 billion in assistance for the continent. It marks another big step in China-Africa's so-called win-win cooperation. We begin with CCTV's Angelo Coppola. And Angelo, President Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, did make a major funding announcement at that meeting with African leaders in South Africa. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it's a big deal. An analyst tells me that it's almost 3 times more than the last pledge in 2006. And that's no mean feat, considering the current economic situation that the world finds itself in. The $60 billion will be split up into low interest and no interest loans. There's going to be some unencumbered debt in that amount as well. But more importantly, there's training for some 200,000 technicians, around 40,000 training opportunities for others, and then 2,000 scholarships for Africans. So it's going to be spent and allocated in the next 3 years. And it links up with the African Union's 2063 agenda, which focuses on infrastructure, agriculture, and people development. So an analyst also suggested that there was an unintended consequence of China's investment and interest and support for African economies in the last couple of years. And that is that investors are starting to look at the continent with fresh eyes, which may crowd new investors in. Anand?
Angela, of course, this is a major development funding pledge by the Chinese. What's been the response from African leaders?
Well, during the 2 days that the summit was on, we caught up with 3 foreign affairs ministers. Mariel Benjamin is the South Sudanese foreign minister, and he was upbeat, although he was concerned that there weren't more African business people at the business forum to go and look for some deals with a very large Chinese contingent of around 1,700 people. On the other hand, some of the African exhibitors we spoke to said they weren't given enough time to get their exhibition stands in order, so they were a little bit disorganized there. Meanwhile, Mohammed Al-Dari, the Libyan foreign minister, said to us he was confident that China's investment or involvement would lead to peace and security on the continent, specifically in his country. Libya, as you know, has been going through turmoil of its own since 2011, and they're a long way off from resolving their challenges, despite recent positive indications. And then Kenya's foreign affairs minister, Amina Mohammed, said to us that she doesn't see any issues around timelines, and because the over-delivery that happened with the last pledge from 2006 and the fact that they met their deadlines on time is a good sign that this current pledge is going to meet its deadlines and its targets. However, of course, South Africa's President Jacob Zuma, in his closing remarks, said that it's imperative that those timelines are put in place and work starts almost immediately. Anand?
And beyond the major economic news, what else did President Xi accomplish on this visit?
Anand, as you know, that before he came to Pretoria for his 2-day state visit, he stopped off for a day and a half in Zimbabwe, and he spent time there shoring up the relationship with President Robert Mugabe. Several deals, obviously, and MOUs were signed there, but more importantly, perhaps, it's the first state visit by a Chinese leader to the country since 1996. The Zimbabwean president was overjoyed with the results of the visit. Just very briefly, China's Export-Import Bank are going to be lending the country around $1.2 billion to repair and expand a thermo-coal-powered power station that's there. The bank's also going to provide a loan for the state-owned telco Tel1 to invest and install some fiber and some internet broadband. And China will also fund the construction of a pharmaceutical warehouse and, interestingly, a new parliamentary building. Then, of course, there was the $6 billion in loans that South Africa got, as well as a credit guarantee for the 2 state-owned entities, Eskom and Transnet. All in all, a pretty remarkable visit. But now, as everyone's saying, is the time for delivery, and we have just 3 years. Anand?
Thanks, Angelo. That's CCTV correspondent Angelo Coppola talking to us from Johannesburg.